Welcome to FoundHer Rising, the podcast for women founders in wellness, coaching, and consulting who are ready to step beyond one-to-one work and build businesses that create freedom, impact, and income. I'm your host, Christine Hakkola, business coach, former psychotherapist, and mentor to women scaling service-based businesses. Each week, I sit down with incredible women who've built their businesses on their own terms. We talk about the messy middle, the mindset shifts, and the systems that make growth sustainable, the real stuff that helps you lead like a CEO instead of a practitioner. So here's my question for you. What if menopause isn't a setback in business, but the doorway to your most powerful years as a founder? Today, I'm joined by Kelly Hill, founder of Profit and Lattes Inc. and the creator of the Menopausal Entrepreneur. With years of experience helping midlife women build businesses that work with their changing bodies and brains, she teaches women how to leverage the wisdom of this life stage to build profitable, aligned, truly energizing businesses. If you're ready to thrive instead of just survive this next chapter, you're going to love this conversation. Please welcome Kelly Hill. Hi, Kelly. How are you doing?
Hi, Christine. I'm good, thanks. And thank you for having me on.
Oh my gosh, from the first time we spoke, I was just so excited to have this conversation with you. I remember getting on that call and just right away we vibed and had so
We
much in
did,
common.
yes.
I just love the work that you're doing and cannot
Oh,
wait to share
thank
it with
you.
our listeners.
Thank you.
So let's just dive right in. If we can kind of go back to the beginning of your entrepreneurial journey. I know you told me, your story, but if you could share it with the listeners, like how did you get into this? How did you get started being an entrepreneur and doing what you do today?
It's a funny story because it was actually my a life coach. I didn't even know what a life coach was,
Yeah.
but I got on a call with a life coach because clearly life was not happening well for me. So I didn't know what was going on, with anything. And so, long story short, I had said to her, "Well, I only have 9 more years till retirement." And I said, and I'm retiring early because they don't live long in my family, so I was giving her some math, and she says
Yeah.
at the end of the conversation, so let me get this right. You're going to work 9 more years so you can enjoy 6 years of life before you die early. And
Wow.
it was
Wow.
life changing. It
Yeah.
like literally
Really
life
puts it into
changing.
perspective. Oh,
Yeah. Yeah. And I started my business within, I think, 3 weeks.
oh my gosh.
Yeah, the conversation then went on to say if you could do whatever you wanted to do, or if you could start something new. And I said, I've always wanted to start a business. And
Yeah.
so I did. And
Oh my
that's
gosh.
what,
So what
yeah,
did you
that's
start? What's the business? What was the business at the beginning?
at the beginning, it was called Blue Water Virtual Business Solutions. And it was a very corporate name at the time because I was, in corporate myself, and I've always been that kind of person. But it's evolved into Profit and Lattes now, and that's more my vibe, more fun.
Okay.
But it was, a technical and financial support business for other entrepreneurs.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's dive a little deeper into that part of the journey. There's a couple things that I remember from our initial conversation that stood out to me. One, you used a phrase that I just loved. Maybe not to do it, but you said you rage quit
Mhm.
your first job or one of your jobs as you transitioned into being an entrepreneur. And you also talked to me about your own experience going through menopause and how that really shifted your trajectory in business. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so right when all this started, so this is about 4 years ago now, things were weird and happening. I'd left my corporate part of my job, stayed in the same organization, and moved to teaching for a variety of reasons we won't get into. But I could tell things were different, but didn't really just thought I was unsettled.
Yeah.
And so then when I started my business, kind of the old Kelly came back and the vibe was there and I was killing it. I'm working full time. I'm, running a full business, having a full team and making, 6 figures, and it was going really well. And then I just crashed and burned about a year and a half into this, 2 years maybe. And for the longest time, thought it was stress or burnout, but it kept the physical symptoms and the cognitive symptoms kept getting worse, and I ended up having to take time off of both. Stepped away from my job, stepped out of my business, and really navigated about 7 or 8 doctors and specialists, and trying to figure out what was wrong. And at the end of the day, now I used to say it was only menopause, but I don't say that anymore.
Mm.
It was menopause, and just being uninformed and unaware of what menopause can do to you. I didn't realize that and didn't get help in time to kind of forego a lot of the symptoms,
Mm-hmm.
which ultimately led to rage quitting, as I call it. I was at the height of my, distress in this situation. It had been going on for 2 years. My organization I'd been at for 23 years was not at all supportive.
Mm.
And, mental, for my own mental and physical health, I just said, I've had enough. I have to go. Yeah, if you're not
I
going
imagine so many of our listeners can relate to that.
Yeah, and would I have done it in hindsight? I mean, it wasn't my smartest move by any means, but I think it had to be done for my own personal well-being.
Yeah.
So that's why I call it rage quitting. It wasn't what I wanted to do, wasn't what I would have done, but it was necessary, and
Yeah. Yeah.
necessary.
When
Yeah.
I talk with clients and colleagues and friends about these kinds of things, like I always operate under the assumption that we're doing the best we can with what we've got in the moment, and I trust, just knowing you the little bit I do, that that was the case for you as well. And it sounds like you just had so much you were dealing with at the time.
So much, yeah. And was right in the middle. Like we were so close to figuring out, like, it would have been right in that time frame. We just figured out what it was, and I was starting it was difficult for me to get hormone replacement therapy, which is we can talk about. So I hadn't yet started treatment. So I was at the height of my distress. Mental health was in the drain. For somebody that had already always identified with their career and being a career corporate woman and all those things, a businesswoman, to be taken completely out of my job and my business, that messes with your identity, right? Which of course is going to
Yes.
mess with your mental health. And then when you are dealing with an organization that you gave 23 years of your life to, and they're giving nothing back
Totally.
to help you through this, yeah, it was such a depressing time. And I just knew that if I didn't get out, that may be detrimental. Like, I'm not going to lie. Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
believe it. I want to get into how your experience going through menopause and everything you really suffered through and also learned, how that changed your business. But before we go there, a little bit ago, you talked about leaving your job, rage quitting your job, right? And then just growing this wildly profitable business, right? And you said it like it was nothing, like, yeah, I just did it. And I imagine there was a lot of work that went into that. So talk to the listeners, especially those that are out there who are thinking about quitting, maybe not rage quitting, but quitting their jobs, becoming entrepreneurs, those who have already started growing their business, but are maybe in those early stages of trying to figure out who they're serving and how they get clients and how they even get to six figures. What were a few of the pieces or nuggets of wisdom that you can share that helped you grow so quickly?
Okay, so I'm just going to change the timeline a little bit there.
Yeah.
So actually, my business grew quickly when I was still working and
Mm.
before all of this happened. Yeah. Literally was starting a side hustle for fun. I'm an accountant. I have a full-time job. I'm making good money at my full-time
Yeah.
jobs, but I was kind of just not feeling life. So I just did it for fun. And then it just kind of went so fast, and I was working, so I had to hire a team. So,
Oh my God.
I didn't do at all what I started out to do
Mhm.
as in
Mhm.
my business. I just ended up opening a bookkeeping financial management company, because when they find out you're an accountant, that's just where you go, right? And then it was exciting for me because I could hire my students, right? Because I taught
Mm.
accounting. And so it was like, then I had this grand plan of really giving opportunities to students who didn't get good co-op opportunities, and it was going great. And the way I did that is I did a lot of research into the world of online and remote working.
Mhm.
Again, couldn't do it without a team for sure. And software, you have to have some knowledge or interest in, I think, learning software, because I mean, you can be anywhere, you would know, anywhere from 7 to 20 pieces of software at any given time, depending what your business is.
Yeah.
So then what happened was, actually, I pretty much burned my business down throughout all of this. So
Mm.
my team kept going while I was off, but then slowly I sort of dissolved that part of the business when I came back. So I actually went to like almost no income, right, for the business. Yeah, definitely no income for myself, because when I was off, it was paying the business
Yeah.
or the team. And so, yeah, so it's very different. I went from six figures to almost nothing
Wow.
throughout the year that I was off. Yeah. So, yeah, a little bit of a different timeline there, but
Yeah.
um, in the beginning, it was just easy because I went with what I was already good at,
Yeah,
right?
that's what was coming up for me. And I see that a
Yes.
lot is even though folks' business evolves and mine has too, a very natural starting point, especially for those who are out there kind of wondering where they should start, is I'm hearing from you what was easiest and most natural was to do what you were already skilled at and what people already recognized you for.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah, and it lends instant credibility, right? And you can answer their questions without thinking, whereas when the business I wanted to start, I still was learning myself, right? Because I really wasn't all that up on I love technology and software, but I wasn't up on the right technology and software to be that person for someone else.
Right. So you did what you were
So,
already good at, grew that profitably so that you had
yes.
space to learn the next step and evolve your business.
Exactly. And when you do that, you inherently just start to learn all of the other tools that come along with it, right? So it was easier to just go with the flow, especially
Mhm.
since I wasn't overly working in it either. At that point, I was kind of just running a business, which was what I wanted to do,
Right.
right? I
Right.
had other people doing the bookkeeping within, 6 months because, we get summers off as teachers. But by the time I had to go back to work, I was 7 or 8 months into my business, but I couldn't handle when I went back to work. So then that's when I started hiring a team.
Yeah, I love this. There's so many great nuggets there, I think, for those that are just starting out, is the importance of sticking to what you know, tapping into your strengths. Even if that's not the business you want to build down the road, that's okay, right? Because when we have a successful business, we have a lot more opportunity than when we're starting in something brand new and we feel uncertain, because then our potential clients feel that, and it can make it even harder. I think it sounds from like what you're sharing that everything started off great, right? And that maybe even you had that intention to pivot, but menopause derailed you personally. And then
Exactly.
and then you shared with me in our last conversation that what you learned and what you experienced during that journey is now a part of what you do professionally. So talk to us about that. How did you firstly, recover from your personal journey with this inspiration to bring it into your business? And how did you do that? How did you pivot your business?
So after I rage quit, as I mentioned, I had just started hormone therapy, and so unfortunately, I wasn't one of the lucky ones where within 2 weeks you feel great. So I actually got worse, probably mentally, before I got better because then I had no job to go back to,
Mhm.
right? And I could see my business sort of failing, and so. Not failing, team was doing great, but I could see my part in the business failing. And so I tried to kind of, by the time the hormone therapy started going and, I tried to go back into the business, into my old role, which was in financial consulting. And, we had all these plans of what my role was going to be moving forward. And I just didn't feel it anymore. It was just gone. And I just knew and I felt compelled to do something with the lack of knowledge,
Mhm.
then turn to knowledge that I had gone through in the last 2 years. Because, entrepreneurship is super lonely and menopause
Absolutely can
is
be. Yeah.
very lonely. Both of these things for me were very isolating, and together it was the worst thing I've ever experienced,
Oh,
probably. So I stepped back out of the business, left it with the team again, and I went back to school, so to speak, and I took my life and wellness certification, my menopause coaching certification, and I found my softer side, I call it,
mhm.
because I've always been left brain Kelly, right? So I had to go find right brain Kelly, and what does it look like when you're bringing non-analytical, expertise or knowledge, I guess, maybe not expertise yet, but knowledge into play. Because it's one thing to go through it yourself, but it's another thing to learn how to help someone else with it,
Oh my
right?
gosh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So then that's when I decided that I was gonna, I am the menopausal entrepreneur. I talk about it openly and freely because I believe that it is such a tough spot to be in for a woman, right? To be a
And can be
menopause.
so taboo to talk about, especially in business.
Right. Yes. My friends are tired of hearing the word menopause. I talk about it like talking about what I had for breakfast. And some people are really taken aback by it, but I think it's so important. And so that's why I just called myself that because I thought, if I just call myself that, people will get it. I mean, there's no questioning really
Right.
what's going on.
Well, and those
Right.
who don't get it and aren't interested are going to go the other way, which is what
They're
you
not my
want. And
people.
those who are resonating and going, oh my God, yes, that's me, can find you very
Yeah.
easily.
Yeah, and it just opens up the conversation, right? There's no question about what it
It's a
is that
great
I
talking
do.
point.
Yeah, there's no question about what I do or where I am in life, right? And so it's an easy conversation starter, and it makes women feel very comfortable in talking about what's going on with them.
Oh,
And
for
it's so important, I think, I'm sure you know, as an entrepreneur, there's a difference between the people in your life that understand entrepreneurship and the people in your life that
sure.
don't.
Yes.
Yeah,
All
no
the listeners
detriment
can
to
relate.
those that, yeah, no detriment to those that don't, but it is a different conversation and different level of support.
Hmm.
Well, it's the same in menopause, right?
Hmm.
If you're not taught, like I was young, I was in full blown menopause, and this happened to me like when I was taken out, so to speak, as I call it. I was only 47. So would not have even, I mean, scientifically, I knew I was in menopause. We know the day. But other than that, it was just something that was sloughed off all throughout my year of trying to figure out what was going on because I was so young. And so I think it's really important, especially in perimenopause for women, which is really also the age where they start new businesses, right? So when I did
Hmm.
the math backwards, that's what was happening to me at the time that
Wow.
I left my corporate job, moved to teaching, some cognitive difficulties I was having, some life difficulties, some
Hmm.
rage, just all the things were leading to just discontent in my life.
Yeah.
And so you try to solve those things, and a lot of women turn to starting their own business, right? For me, it wasn't actually to leave my job. It was to just enhance, I wasn't feeling overly challenged in my job from an intellectual perspective in learning. Not
Hmm.
that what I was doing wasn't important. It's just that I wasn't doing what I'd always been doing, which is constantly learning and evolving and doing things. And so my intent was never really to leave. I wanted to run a business, not work in it, if that
Right.
makes
Right.
sense.
It,
Yeah.
it
So
does. It
I
does.
thought, yeah, I thought I'd marry them very well because I thought I could bring a lot of information and knowledge and opportunities into my workplace, into the college.
Yeah.
And that didn't happen. So here we are.
This is the piece that, really excited me to talk with you about because, I think for myself and for the vast majority of the folks that I work with, the women that I work with, this is a really important and definitely under talked about, if that's a phrase, experience. And I just love this connection and the hopefulness that this awareness of recognizing that sometimes our entrepreneurial path, either the decision to go into it or some of the hardships that we have during it, are highly interconnected with perimenopause and the experience of going through that. And you said a little nugget that I really want to point out to our listeners because I relate to this as well. You mentioned how your first business, it was thriving. You were earning over six figures. It could run without you, which is really like, the golden ticket. It's what people who are heading into entrepreneurship dream about. And you talked about, and I can really relate to stepping away from that business. In my case, it was selling the business simply because it didn't align anymore. And it wasn't that it didn't check any boxes, right? It was doing great. There was nothing wrong with the business. It just didn't match you. And I really want to point that out because I hear that from so many people. They've started these incredible businesses, whether they're still in the earlier stages or whether they've grown them to something bigger, and they're just feeling disconnected. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but sometimes it's because we outgrow the business that we've created and we're ready for what's next. But that was really scary, and it can be really scary. And I want to really just honor in your journey that you had the strength and the wisdom to be able to do that, to make that pivot, step away from something you built that was safe and secure into this next phase.
Yeah, well, and the thing is when you build something like that, and when I came back, I thought, I can't just give this up. So
Mhm.
to me, but I felt like kind of sticking a square peg in a round hole. I was
Yeah,
trying to fit the new version of me into the old version of me's
such a
business.
great way to describe it. Yes.
Yeah, that's
That
exactly what it
feeling.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, and I'm not saying the last year's been easy because it has not. And there's many times I've thought, do I want to do this all again, right? Because now I don't have a team now. We've closed down the bookkeeping side and the financial management. So that was another mental toll, when my last team member, who's a very good friend of mine and who we had the grand plans, and it was great parting. It's not like anything happened. It's just that I didn't feel called to do bookkeeping anymore, and neither did she. So we just folded that, and yeah, she went and did her own thing. And so I feel like she'll be back someday. But
Great way to honor
so
each other and what you built, though.
Yeah. And I feel like, now I just call in someone when I need some help, but I'm happy that it's just me right now and I can figure out what I want without, because when you're responsible for other people, that's how, the whole time I was off sick, I was, thinking about how much they needed to get paid and how much money I needed,
Sure.
but at the end of the day, I wasn't getting paid out of my business at all. In fact, I was probably injecting money at that point because I
Mhm.
wanted to make sure I maintained their level of living standard, right? And so this is the nugget I want to share with your listeners is one of my biggest mistakes in being a new entrepreneur is not having passive income, not
Mm.
having any product other than myself being, I had bookkeeping, but that wasn't my passive income. And I had some overhead from that. But, I didn't have anything that was generating money in the background for me while I was off sick, right? So if I didn't have
Or
the team
unfortunate.
members that I had at the time, I wouldn't have a business today.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I really caution entrepreneurs to not state their entire business. And it doesn't matter what business, this. It doesn't matter
Yeah,
what business you're in. You can be a coach, but you can have passive income. And so
absolutely.
that's sort of the focus of my coaching these days is that's great. You want to help people. That's great. You want to coach. That's great. You want to be one-on-one, but let's start planning for what comes next now.
Yes, the phrase I
Yeah,
often use, and I certainly can't take credit for coining it, it's very common, but is this idea of growing a sustainable business. And I think that
exactly.
can mean a lot of things, but one of the things that it means to me and to my clients is that we're growing a business that, as you said, doesn't entirely depend on us, that we can step away for parental leave, for sick leave, for vacation. And A, our business doesn't fall apart without us. And B, we're still earning an income. Maybe not as much as we were when we were working full time, seeing people face to face, trading time for money, so to speak. But that sustainability is so important just for our stress levels, for our financial wellness and long-term well-being.
Right. And it's not something you can just start overnight,
Yeah.
right? You can't just say, okay, now I'm going to pivot and I'm
Yeah.
going to
It's
start
usually one
selling
of the first things we
products.
do.
Yeah, it's something that has to build along with you. So if you get the idea, so my current coaching program is about that. It's let's just start with one thing, one thing that's out there in the marketplace that you can sell. Maybe it's $27, doesn't matter. We don't care right now. Any bonus that comes from it is great, but we're getting, the audience moving and seeing that
Yeah.
we're offering things other than, like you said, trading time for money.
I love that. I want to get to what's next. I'm very eager, but I have a couple questions for you first. So, one, if you could share with the listeners, talking about nuggets of wisdom, when you made the transition from your previous company into this new one that you're currently building, what would you say is the biggest mindset shift that you experienced that allowed you to pivot into this next phase?
So that's an interesting question for me because I could give you two different mindset shifts. So the
I'll
first
take two.
one,
I'll take two.
yeah, the first one was when I came back. I was literally in the middle of launching our signature program, and I think I'd already had two people sign up, and I was dreading it.
Mm,
Dreading it. Love the people that signed up because I knew who they were. But I was dreading the program itself. And I knew I was doing something that wasn't aligned with where I was going.
good list.
And I thought, I'm just going to do the same thing. Is this just that 9 more years thing? Right? All of a sudden, I'm living the same life I was living before,
Mm,
but in a different place and not
wow.
making the same money. And so that mindset shift allowed me to pause and really take a step back, research the menopause side of things and the life and wellness side of things and what I can do with that.
Yeah.
And so that is different than old Kelly. Old Kelly would have just plowed ahead with where she knew she could make the most money,
Yeah.
right? That's how I've always been. Most
Mm,
recently, another mindset shift I've had is sometimes you just need to let go of what was to build what is. And I've only just in the last month or so really closed down a lot of my old, whether it be systems, whether it be, things you purchased, it doesn't matter.
mm,
We invest all this time, money, and effort in things as entrepreneurs. And then we think we're like married to it. I
mhm,
took this
mhm.
course and it told me to do this. Therefore, I
Oh,
think
I
I
have
should
to
do
do it
that.
that way.
Yes, I must do
Even if it's
that.
not working.
Exactly. Or somebody says you must start a podcast or you must be on Pinterest or you must be on social media. And what I've decided is like, I talked about this earlier. I've had a little social media break in the last month because I just know when I'm done. with social media for a while, and I don't do any big announcement. Nobody really notices, maybe except if somebody's looking for me. um, you know, yeah. So the mindset shift is, don't do what you've always done just because that's what you've always done. You can do whatever you want to do and it will work out if you want it to. And that's how I am looking at things now in this kind of second chapter of my life, because I like what you said in the beginning. Your introductory was, what if this is I forget exactly how you worded it, but the best time to come, right?
Yeah, it's not an ending, and it's not the words I use, but it doesn't mean there's something wrong or broken or, like, obviously it feels uncomfortable and even painful at times, and it can be the opening into something newer and greater, like what you're experiencing now.
Yeah. Aside from the physical and cognitive and all the other issues menopause brings with it, it brings some freeingness. I don't think that's a word, but I made it up for now. It allows, women spend all their lives doing everything for everybody else, whether it's, devoting yourself to your career, devoting yourself to your children, to your husband, to your whatever, your hobbies or your volunteers. And then it's, you stop and you look around and all those things are going on without you. And you think, well, what's in it for me? What am I doing? And you see so many women between 45 and 55, either getting divorced or leaving their jobs or starting businesses, right? And it's because we finally stopped to think, okay, we plowed through life so that we could provide for everybody else. But what am I going to do with the rest of my life? And that's where we start going, oh, okay, well, maybe I'll start a business, which is what is great about this day and age. Women 20 years ago even probably didn't have that, ability to just say, I think I'm just going to start a business and do my hobby.
So much more opportunity now.
Yeah, to make money from my hobby. Like, how great is that?
So speaking of your second business, what have you learned about building systems, building a team that you are 100% absolutely going to carry with you into this next business?
I'm going to not build a team or bring on a team with my gut. In the beginning, I had an idealistic way of looking at building a team. I had some gems I knew were gems, and they were gems. But then I, had an idea of how I wanted to help people grow and help people learn. It's not a realistic thing to do as an entrepreneur, right? You can't give an opportunity to someone that doesn't really know how to do something if you don't have the ability to want to fund that learning process. So I've learned now that that can come later if that's something I'm interested in. But for now, I'm going to find the right expertise for the right piece of the puzzle that needs to be fit in, right? I don't need an ongoing team member.
That is so important.
It's so important. And we are in the generation now that that can be done. You can go and find someone that's specifically skilled in this piece of whatever you need done without hiring somebody or teaching somebody. The other thing I've learned about the team is if you don't hire someone that has an entrepreneurial mindset, meaning they understand that you aren't corporate and a bottomless pit of money, and not saying somebody has to work for free for you. I never believe in that, but the clock in, clock out, I don't know how to explain it. If they don't have an entrepreneurial mindset, they don't know what it's like to try and help a business grow. They just are there to punch a card.
If they've only had salary jobs or been an employee somewhere rather than having their own business or being an entrepreneur themselves, being an independent contractor, it can.
Yes, exactly. Understanding that, I am they also lack the ability to maybe, force themselves to work when they have such freedom.
Their autonomy.
Yes, exactly. So I would probably watch out for that again too, if I were to do
Great
that
advice. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, I have one final question, Kelly, before we start to wrap up. Well, actually maybe two, but last big one is, so we're nearing the end of the year, right? I know that you've got a 50th birthday trip, a 50th birthday quarter planned for yourself. Happy for you to say a little bit about that, because I'm sure I've now intrigued the listeners. But I also want to know what's next for you. What are you building in 2026?
Actually, they go hand in hand, so I can talk about both.
Amazing.
So one thing I can say is that, everybody has a different level of believing in the law of attraction, manifestation, all the things, right? But what I can tell you is when I decide I'm going to do something like my 50th birthday quarter, I talked about it and I talked about it and I talked about it, and it's happening, and it's happening in such a weird way. So I started talking about this maybe 2 years ago, right in the height of my, mess of menopause. And I'm like, when I get out of this, I'm going to have my 50th birthday quarter. I'm going to go down south and we're going to get a condo, and then we're going to have people come and visit me for my birthday birthday quarter. If anybody,
Yeah.
some people don't understand, that's 3 months, right?
Yeah. Terms.
Yeah, my husband and I both hate winter immensely. But at the time, we both had full-time jobs. It wasn't realistic. I would never be able to leave my job in the winter, and neither would he. And then I didn't mention this part when I rage quit. He had actually lost his job 3 weeks before through downsizing. Yeah.
What a time.
Yeah. So we all of a sudden found ourselves both as entrepreneurs, because he ended up starting a business too. And so anyways, long story short, we are going, we're going to Mexico. That really is. Oh God, 2 entrepreneurs in a menopausal household. Oh my goodness.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, soulmates. So, so we leave for Mexico in 20 days. I'm spending 3 months down there, and I turned 50 in March, and I am, determined that this is going to be my best year yet. And I want to prove to women out there that when you finally get the right treatment, the right help, the right support, and put yourself in the right place in your life, that it truly is going to be better than it was before. And that's really what I want to show people. Yes.
I cannot wait to hear all your insights when you get back.
Yes. Well, thank you.
That is incredible. Kelly, I would love for you to share with the listeners, where can people find you if they want to get in touch?
So I am personally, but yet still menopause, supporting on the Menopausal Entrepreneur on Instagram. And then Profit and Lattes is on, LinkedIn, and I'm on LinkedIn as well. And then Profit and Lattes is in all 3 places, where you'll find more of the, what I do now is I help women start their coaching businesses at low cost, and easy technology. The 2 things that people
that's
struggle
what you're
with.
Looking for. Kelly's your gal.
Yes. And so they can find me. Instagram or LinkedIn are the best places to find me.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. And thank you so much, Kelly, for being here and sharing with us your journey, your insights, your wisdom. I'm just so excited to stay connected with you. And thank you, listener, for tuning in to FoundHer Rising. If today's episode resonated with you, make sure to follow the show, share it with another founder, and leave a quick review. It helps more women find these conversations. You can always connect with me on LinkedIn or learn more about how I support women grow and scale service-based businesses at HakkolaHorizons.com. Until next time, keep rising and keep building the business that gives you freedom to live, lead, and create on your terms.